This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Sam Marshall. This show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today we cross live to Pretoria, where President Jacob Zuma is expected to officially open the Sefako Makgatho Health Science University in Pretoria. We'll have a chat to the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande. We take a look at student activism and Nedbank Kiona Team Time, where we take a look at football and fashion. Yes, they do meet. But first, let's get the day's news with Anita Demel.
Good morning, I'm Anita Demel. Let's just have a look at the stories making headlines today. Transport Union SABC suspects the killing of its Gauteng Provincial Secretary was a hit. Gauteng police are investigating the killing of the union's Provincial Secretary, Chris Nkosi. Nkosi was shot dead in his car in Germiston, east of Johannesburg, last night. He was found in his vehicle with multiple gunshot wounds. He had been driving home from the union's provincial offices. Durban's wave of xenophobic attacks will again be in the spotlight this morning. This as Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba and KwaZulu-Natal's Premier are to meet diplomats from African states to discuss the recent attacks on foreign nationals in the province. More than 2,000 foreigners have forcibly been displaced. They are now being accommodated at makeshift camps in Chatsworth, Isipingo and Greenwood Park. Police have so far arrested 22 people, most of them for looting. The EFF's 3 expelled MPs have vowed to be back in Parliament today. Kanyasile Litchfield Chabalala, Mpho Ramakatsa and Andile Nkitama say they will defy the expulsions, which they don't recognize. The 3 were found guilty of convening unauthorized media briefings and failing to attend parliamentary sessions. Meanwhile, Parliament has confirmed it has received the expulsion letters from the EFF Chief Whip Floyd Shivambu. The EFF says it will announce replacements for the expelled members in due course. Eskom and NIMSA say they will continue meeting until the Medupi labour dispute is resolved. The utilities management and representatives of the trade union met last night to discuss the continuing dispute at the power station in Limpopo. Over 6,000 construction workers did not report for duty yesterday, in solidarity with 1,700 employees that were dismissed last month. Meanwhile, Eskom says it's likely to continue its latest load shedding throughout the week due to a shortage of generation capacity.
The most important bit, which is the work on Unit 6 of Medupi, which is the first of the 6 units, that one was not affected. Our engineers and technicians will continue to run the tests, and as a result, we still are on track to meet the June deadline.
Nigeria's president has vowed to make every effort to free more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram. The abduction of the girls from a school in Chibok last April drew international attention to the humanitarian crisis caused by the group. A silent protest was held in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, to mark the 1-year anniversary of the kidnapping. Boko Haram has kidnapped at least 2,000 Nigerian women and girls since the start of 2014. The victim of the abduction believes those missing will return to their loved ones.
They will come back. As a parent, we can't give up that they won't come back. We know that they will come back. God on our side, God that's in Nigeria, they will come back. We trust God.
Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Annie. Now, as the debate around statues rages on, government will today open a new university named after another ANC stalwart. President Jacob Zuma will officially open the new Sefako Makgatho Health Science University in Pretoria. Sefako Makgatho was the second president of the African National Congress between 1917 and 1924. The new institution is housed at the former Medunsa University campus and already has 5,000 students. The university was officially established in 2011 by Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Blade Nzimande, with the intention of separating the Medunsa campus from the University of Limpopo. Now, our SABC reporter, Faith Daniels, is set to talk to the minister a little bit later. She's coming live from the Medunsa campus in Ga-Rankuwa. Faith, good morning. Welcome to Newsroom. Can you set the scene for us? What is expected today?
Good morning to you, Sam. Well, there's a lot of preparation that's going into what is going to be the official launch of the Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University later on. We know that President Jacob Zuma is expected later on, as well as Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande. Now, I don't know if you can see behind me, there is a statue that is going to be unveiled later on. And of course, as you mentioned in your intro, that's quite topical in the country, not only on university campuses around the country, but on places of prominence. We've seen various protests. We've seen students voicing their concern about what they call former colonization statues that is on their campuses. It would be interesting to see what the students' response would be about this statue of Sefako Mahato that is on this campus, because we know that some of these protests have been very, very random of late. Yesterday, a person was arrested for defacing the Mahatma Gandhi statue in downtown Johannesburg. So it would be interesting also to speak to the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, on that as well. But we expect the President still to arrive to be the keynote speaker here in Ga-Rankuwa, just outside Pretoria, at these official, the official ceremony. And we're also expecting the Higher Education Minister, Blade Nzimande, to join us later to take us through what exactly the plans are for this institution, because as we know, the Medunsa University, formerly amalgamated with the University of Limpopo, and now it's going to be detached again. That former merger no longer recognized. And we want the minister's views on just exactly what that means for mergers in the country of other higher education institutions, and what exactly their plans are for this University of Health Sciences. Sam?
Faith Daniels, thank you very much for setting that scene for us from Ga-Rankuwa. And of course, as she rightfully mentioned, that President Jacob Zuma is expected to officially officiate the opening of the Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University in Pretoria. Now, the 1976 student uprising marked an important time in our history. It showed the ability of students to unite and fight for political change in the country. Recently, some of the students at the UCT showed the same drive when they protested for the removal of the Cecil John Rhodes statue. Today in studio, we are joined by Seth Mazibuko and Umtutu Kumboti to discuss the role of student activism in fighting for transformation in South Africa. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here in Newsroom.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mazibuko, let's maybe start with you, and I think it's an interesting thing, and let's just pick up that conversation very quickly. Our SABC reporter, Faith Daniels, talking about how students will interpret the rising of a new statue at the Sefako Mahato Health Services University. We've seen student activism. How different is it from what you did in 1976? And also, maybe to a large degree, do you resonate as, do you have some kind of connection, or do you understand the connection between what happened in 1976 and what students are trying to do today?
You know, in 1976, we were called naughty boys, naughty girls. Some of us at age 16 were put in prison, called terrorists. And we were fighting a particular struggle. And most of the time when I'm requested to make a comparison of the 1976 struggle with the 2015 struggle, I have a problem. It's really comparing a microwave and an oven. And you know, these are microwave students that are faced by microwave problems. And we were students faced by oven issues. And if you separate the two, then you are able to say to yourself, in 1976 we threw stones against apartheid. And these guys, in as far as I'm concerned, they're supposed to be gathering those stones. They're supposed to be cleaning up, you know, the stones that we threw. And it's a very challenging period.
Are they?
I'm coming to that because I was going to connect it to your last part. In 1976, we boycotted and did everything under those statues. Look, we bent down bottle stores that were feeding liquor to our parents. We said we don't want them because they were also positioned next to stations, train stations and all that. We actually boycotted, the West Rand Administration Board structures. Now, these guys are saying, same thing that you fathers did. We're doing it at another level. We cannot still be under those statues that actually oppressed you. So I resonate very well with what they're doing. I might maybe be differing with how it is done, but as much as other people will differ with how 1976 students did it. But now maybe we need a situation where we are saying, Mahatma Gandhi, should he go? Just now what is announced about the Medunsa. I'm worried because as we are busy putting up these new statues, there's a new argument that is coming that says, who are these new ones? Who are they representing? Are they the ANC people? Where are the black consciousness people? Where are the PAC people? There might be another battle that comes in. Now, we need to really do this in a very sober and a dignified way and start saying, which are these statues that we want in the place of roads, of Cecil John Roads? Who do we put there? Do we put Mugabe? Or do we, because from Rhodesia to Cecil John Roads? Now, what do we do? I think there must be that conversation. Actually, there must be a national dialogue. These students have actually invited us into a conversation as a nation. Some codes have some kind of saying, we have removed apartheid and all that goes with it. How then, from their voices, we should be asking, how do we take that struggle to another level where we start saying, who do we put on there? So that we mustn't find this tension again becoming partisan. There's already the tension, let me assure you.
It's interesting that you're talking about, for example, about Sefako Makgatho. I mean, we understand that he was a teacher, a unionist. Although he was the second president of the ANC, he was also instrumental in, for example, starting the teachers' union. He was instrumental in fighting for the rights of workers. So maybe Sefako is not necessarily maybe he is part of that discussion, but it's interesting that you mentioned that we need to talk about so many more people and which history is reflected. Let me bring in Mr. Kumboti here very, very quickly. We've seen student activism and the kind of the work that they're doing on the ground and the success with the Cecil John Roads. How do we engage the intellectual conversation that Mr. Mazibuko is raising about who should be erased? But more importantly, as a student activist, what causes do you think is worthy of fighting, and which causes don't you fight for?
Well, thank you very much. I think firstly, I want to just abuse the platform to just send our solidarity with the students of Kenya. I think that is quite important. But also to just come to your question, I think firstly, as we take inspiration quite a lot from Comrade Sith and others who were brave student activists at their time. And I think it's important what he's raising, that struggles of students arise from the material conditions at a time. It's all about time and space. And currently, what students are raising, what we are raising as students, is that, look, you have 20 years of democracy, but the legacy of colonialism and apartheid is still very entrenched in our institutions of higher learning. The institutional cultures, if you look at questions of academic staff complements in these institutions, and institutionalized racism that still persists in this. And this is just to say also that universities and institutions of higher learning and training are microcosms of society. And these are the things we see broadly in South African society. We believe that 1994 was an event, a breakthrough. But we need to then carry out the project of 1994, the project of freedom. We think that we still need to liberate this country. And that is why we are saying, in the main, the struggles we're engaged in, it's a struggle for ensuring access to the previously disadvantaged students to higher education. We're talking about success within institutions of higher learning for these students, but also talking about transformation and redress, and trying to ensure that we build a new South African university, a new South African college, a new South African system that is going to espouse the aspirations of South Africans about their future, about a country that we wish to build.
Let's talk about this cross-generational student activism, because So, many of the issues, and I think Mr. Mazibuko touched on it, that a lot of the issues they faced back then, students are still facing now. And back then, their reaction to it was quite violent. Today, we've got so many different means of protesting. We've got a worldwide web that sits in people's pockets. How has activism changed, and how should it change? Maybe I'll start this question with Mr. Mazibuko first.
You know, we carried on the struggle of our leaders, of the 60 student leaders. It was SASO students, South African Student Organization, and BPC that organized, you know, the Frelimo rally, and that organized medical students and all the Steve Biko, that organized that actually moved away from organizations of liberal nature such as Newsroom to form what was then called, actually Steve Biko even had to die because of his student activism. Now we then came in as your June 16 and leaders of 1976 and then gave birth maybe to other students. And I'm still saying that we have the activism of these levels are totally different. That time we're talking about Frelimo rally, talking about marches, even talking about intellectualizing about matters of politics. You know, it was black consciousness is a state of mind, a way of life. People were right what alike, and all. That struggle demanded some black consciousness. And ours came to say, with that black consciousness, fight apartheid. And then we did it. These guys, yes, is now established democracy. And now even clean up the mess of apartheid. This is their challenge. And the only thing that we need to do, we need to get into that conversation of those students of 1976 and the current students and say, how do we push what you fought for as our fathers, and how do we protect it?
Can I bring Mr. Nkumboti very quickly? Because, you know, a lot of the statues that have been highlighted by students, for example, brings us back to Cecil John Rhodes, the Queen Victoria statue that was defaced, Paul Kruger, all of that. Are we not in the fear of, as students, as we're trying to not change history, history will always be history, but as we deal with history in our public space, is there not a fear that at some point we are maybe racializing this conversation, that there is a connection for some grouping in society that has a connection to those statues, to the Cecil John Rhodes, to the Paul Kruger, to Mahatma Gandhi? There was also, are we not in fear of racializing this conversation?
Well, look, we think I would be concerned if there could be South Africans today who really want to identify with the legacy of a man like Cecil John Rhodes.
But even Mahatma Gandhi was defaced.
Well, I think that's another conversation that we need to have, because there are some elements also trying to hijack this noble struggle. And also there are people who believe that this struggle is just merely about pulling down statues. This is not about pulling down statues. For instance, when communism fell in Russia, for instance, or what was called communism falling, they pulled down Lenin's statues and believed that they were actually destroying the ideas of Lenin. And the ideas of Vladimir Lenin still live on in society. So the ideas of Cecil John Rhodes still live. The issue is to contest and really eradicate the ideas and the legacies that are bequeathed by the Cecil John Rhodes and the likes of Paul Kruger.
Gentlemen, this is a very interesting discussion, and I'm sure that we'll keep on talking about it and invite you back. Seth Mazibuko and Ntutoko Nkumboti talking to us about student activism and maybe the differences and some of the issues that we're dealing with, what happened in 1976 and the student activism of today. Let's just take a look at your tweets you've been sending us. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Let's take a look at that very quickly. It's hashtag xenophobia and hashtag statue must fall. Outcry from the people of South Africa. It should never happen, neither oppression in a democratic society. And that's new leader at Ubuntu. Then Sepo Khopa says, they say South Africa is a country of peace and freedom. How can there be peace if the interest of the citizen is not met? And that's hashtag statues must fall. Godfrey Imdatlate says, I pay tribute to the hashtag Born Frees who have demanded the removal of hashtag road statues and other colonial symbols at varsities countrywide. These, of course, are all reaction to some of the topics over the last couple of weeks. King Z says, stereotypical behavior by hashtag EFF on apartheid-era statues underline that apartheid era and not apartheid statues. That's hashtag Paul Kruger statue. Amit Renata says hashtag Gandhi statue whitewashed in hashtag South Africa. I want all hashtag statues and monuments to be replaced with trees and gardens. Mankind needs trees. That's an interesting take on the statue perspective, and I'm sure some of you might actually share that sentiment. Today's tweet of the day comes from Professor Ruby Peter, saying that South Africa is in desperate need of critical thinkers. We cannot go around defacing monuments like it means nothing. Hashtag statues must fall. And it's interesting. Let us know what you think about that issue. Let's now take a look at the front pages from around the globe. In Israel, the Jerusalem Post, Israel yesterday warned that Russia's decision to lift its 5-year on delivery of S-300 air defense missile system to Iran proves that the deal to curb Tehran's nuclear program will only strengthen its military. Moving to Nigeria, the Vanguard reports that the struggle to win more governorship between the political parties continued yesterday, with two major political parties accusing each other of conspiring with the Independent Electoral Commission. And in the USA, the Washington Post reports that Nicholas Slayton will spend life in prison for the shootings in Baghdad that killed 14 civilians, unarmed civilians, in the Baghdad traffic circle in 2007. Now let's take a look at what is happening around the country today. We start in Johannesburg, where the two men who were allegedly involved in the killing of two police officers on the N3 highway were scheduled to appear in the magistrate's court today on 2 counts of murder, attempted murder, possession of an unlicensed firearm and ammunition, as well as conspiracy to commit robbery. Then in Bloemfontein magistrate's court, 3 employees of the Department of Health are expected to appear on charges of theft after they were caught selling hospital equipment worth 200,000 at one of the scrap yards in the industrial area. And in KZN, a man who claims the voices in his head made him kill a teenager with a hammer is expected to appear in the Pinetown Magistrate's Court today. His last court case was postponed in order for him to undergo mental observation. Now, when Nelson Mandela and then South African President F.W. de Klerk began their historic negotiations to end apartheid, each man possessed respect for the other. Indeed, their relationship appeared not only professional, but personal. Yet, as the negotiations dragged on through 1992 and 1993, tempers grew short and South Africans grew increasingly frustrated. Then followed what the media at the time referred to as the Great Debate on this day exactly 21 years ago.
When I took office, to guide South Africa to a new era, I promised to end apartheid. I promised to release Mr. Nelson Mandela. I promised a new constitution through negotiation. I promised a free and fair election in which all South Africans can participate with an equal vote.
I am humbled to represent the work and struggle of so many people who made the democracy a reality in our country. It is their good work that inspired me every day during those 27 years of my prison life.
That, of course, is Tata Nelson Mandela. Let us know what you think. You can share your thoughts at SABC or at Newsroom SABC. Okay, we take an ad break. Hit again.
In South Africa, if you've got money, then at least you've got justice. Justice is money.
Should the state and the police make sure that their case is watertight? And how do they do that?
It goes without saying that the start of any case is wholly dependent on good evidence that has been properly obtained and secured and should be in a position to be led properly before a magistrate or a presiding officer.
I think you can win a case without evidence only if you've got money, because in South Africa, money talks.
The first detectives to arrive on the scene walked all over the place, with no regard for safeguarding this area.
Once a crime scene is compromised, the evidence that is extracted from that crime scene is the fruits of a poison tree.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. Now, the emergence of the Islamic State began about 16 years ago, known as a rebel militant group in Iraq. But as they gain territory, wealth and power, their influence is claiming religious, political and military authority over all Muslims worldwide. The IS has been calling for many to join their fight in the name of Islam, but their ideals have been widely criticized and condemned. The United Nations, various governments and mainstream Muslim groups are refusing to acknowledge them, saying that their actions resemble war crimes and ethnic cleansing, the abuse of human rights. But what happens when they target our own? Joining us in studio today is the Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Centre, Naeem Gina, who will talk to us about ISIS, the influence in South Africa. Welcome to Newsroom.
Thank you.
Mr. Gina, last year a report stated that an estimated 140 South Africans, although not verified, have joined the Islamic State. Last week, we saw the story of a 15-year-old South African girl who was taken off her flight on her way to join IS. Talk to me about their influence and that growth slowly happening in South Africa.
I think firstly we must be careful about the figures. I mean, that 140...
It's unconfirmed.
It wasn't a report, it was a claim by one journalist with no supporting evidence at all. But I think that there is an attraction in South Africa among some people. Certainly that girl from last week proves that, bears that out. And the attraction is based on, I think, in South Africa as in other countries, on a number of issues. So, you know, the one issue, of course, is this kind of distorted notion of anti-imperialism, anti-Americanism, etc. And the notion that, you know, the Islamic State, America is invading Muslim lands, occupying Muslim lands, and the Islamic State group is the only one that's actually successfully confronting the United States. That's actually not true, but that's the kind of understanding. Then there's also the buying into the theological discourse, which is quite problematic. Then in other countries, which we don't have a problem with here, is in Europe, for example, where there are thousands of people who have left to join the Islamic State group. That kind of comes out of a feeling of alienation and marginalization that many Muslims in particular feel in those countries. That's not a factor in South Africa, and that's why you're not seeing a large number of South Africans actually going to join them or expressing that kind of sympathy.
Should we be on alert, though? Is the fact that there was a 15-year-old South African girl getting on a plane, wanting to join ISIS, is there maybe a discussion that parents at large, not only Muslim parents, but parents at large, should be worried about, that the state security should be worried about? Is this maybe the first sign of things to come?
I think as a nation we should be concerned, as a South African nation, and I think that the primary responsibility for dealing with this lies with the Muslim community and its various institutions. It's the Muslim community, and including parents, but it's a Muslim community that needs to deal with the theological rhetoric that might seem attractive to some, these notions of anti-Americanism, etc., that might seem attractive to some and attract them to ISIS, as well as being the front line in the vigilance. So that these kind of ideas don't take root within the community, and I think that you know, the Muslim community doesn't always step up to play its responsibility or its duty, but this time I think it has.
What do we do now? One of the things that we've heard from experts is that you have to monitor the online activity of your son and your daughter. You've got to look at behavioral changes. But what do we do to be vigilant to make sure that it's not happening to our family or it's not happening in our community?
I mean, I think those things are important, and certainly the monitoring the online pattern of behavior of your children is important, not only for this but for a whole range of reasons. The whole world literally comes into your child's bedroom, or as you said, into your child's pocket. So that we need to be careful of. Censorship, etc., is not the way to go. But what needs to happen is that these kinds of things need to be discussed, like we're doing now, in open conversation in our society. They shouldn't be hidden, they shouldn't be censored, the discussion must take place. Even those who have attitudes that are sympathetic to such groups should be able to express them and be dealt with. Whether it's on television, whether it's in our mosques or in whichever institutions. And I think that those things need to happen. The vigilance in terms of how people are beginning to change their attitudes, what kind of rhetoric they're using, etc. I think those are important things to watch out for.
We have seen Muslim communities around the world speaking out, but there seems to be more being done now in the wake of all the terrorist attacks and claims that this is being done on behalf of Islam. Muslim communities are saying, no, in actual fact, we don't agree with this, and in actual fact, we distance ourselves from that. How do we then make sure that then filters through to those that claim that they're doing it on behalf of an entire grouping?
Oh, I don't think that filtering through to them is the objective, or should be the objective. I don't think that the objective of this vigilance and this, let's say, campaign should be to convert the leadership of ISIS. That's really, no. I mean, as a South African, that's not my issue.
But it's about our own.
It's about our own. It's about ensuring that those ideas don't take root in our society. And so using the kinds of arguments made, I mean, just a couple of months ago, there was a letter signed by about 200 of the most prominent scholars around the world.
I remember.
Using that, and then, the theological argumentation, as I said, that disputes what ISIS is claiming. Those are the things that need to be used in order to, as you say, protect our own.
So we're going to leave it there. Thank you for joining us, and quite informative. That's the Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Centre, Naeem Gina, talking to us about how to protect our own, as we stated. And of course, as you know, with the 15-year-old girl that was recruited by ISIS when Akshafar got onto a plane and was on her way to join ISIS in the Middle East. Now, okay, let's take a look at your tweets. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom and not Newsroom SABC, as I stated earlier. Okay, I am a Muslim. Don't judge me by the actions of others, and of course that is from Zaibi. And then Tabs Muhammad says wife, daughter, sister, granddaughter, friend, entrepreneur, insomniac, tea lover, hashtag Muslims, not extremists. We also got one from Vam Shark, who says the media's coverage of ISIS so far has been the best free recruitment campaign they could have hoped for, and that is under the hashtag ISIS. And I think Vam Shark is saying that maybe we've spent too much time giving the IS publicity. Now, as the debate, and we started this conversation a little bit earlier, around statues rages on, government will today open a new university named after another ANC stalwart. President Jacob Zuma will officially open the new Sefako Makgatho Health Science University in Pretoria. Sefako Makgatho was the second president of the African National Congress between 1917 and 1924. The new institution is housed at the former Medunsa University campus and already has 5,000 students. The university was officially established in 2011 by the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Blade Nzimande, with the intention of separating the Medunsa campus from the University of Limpopo. Our SABC reporter Faith Daniels, who we connected with a little bit earlier, set the scene for us, joins us now from the Old Medical University of South Africa, and in her conversation she'll be talking to the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande. Good morning. Good morning, Faith.
Good morning, Sam, and thank you very much for joining us again here at the Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University. And with us is Higher Education Minister Dr. Bladen Nzimande. Dr. Nzimande, thank you for joining us. You spoke about this quite a number of times, and the unbundling of Medunsa from the University of Limpopo since 2011. Today is that day. Tell South Africans what we can expect from this institution.
This institution will be a new type of an institution. It's not just an old Medunsa that we are returning to. It's now Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University. It's going to be the only university of its type on the continent, and possibly even globally, whose exclusive focus will be health sciences at all levels, from training laboratory technicians, dental assistants, right up to training doctors and other specialists, including very strong postgraduate studies to actually train specialists and other professors. And we aim to expand this university quite significantly. For instance, this year the total number of students is about 5,100. In 10 years' time we want to double that, because of the huge need that we have in the country for health sciences at all levels. It's not only doctors. You know, we don't have enough dental assistants, for instance. We don't have enough people trained in different areas of laboratory work, you know. So it's going to be a very important. We want to make it our flagship university. And we want it to be amongst the best in the world. We want to compare it and benchmark according to that, so that it becomes one of our premier health sciences institution.
Now, it sounds like a very expansive plan, but do we have the expertise and the know-how to get to the point where this university is the benchmark on the continent?
Already, through the leadership of Dr. Shisana, who is chairing the interim council, has already established relations with some of the top universities in the world. One of those, for instance, is the Johns Hopkins Medical School in the United States, which is a very prestigious institution, as well as in other parts of the world where there will be, amongst others, lecturer exchange program, so that you can get Medunsa staff to go and teach in those institutions and gain experience, as well as senior and expert professors to also come here to be able to teach. And within those kinds of arrangements, we are hoping then that we will be able to train our own, but whilst we are training of our own to expand, we will also be able to invite other people to actually come and teach here. It's a very interesting model, you know, which in essence, because we realize we don't have enough personnel, so we actually have got to enter into partnerships with other institutions in different parts of the world. But we are not choosing any institution. We are really choosing very good medical schools in different parts of the world to work with us.
So we're talking about Medunsa being debunked from the University of Limpopo, taking it away from the University of Limpopo once again. Is that an admission from your part that the merger really did not work? And does that mean that mergers in other institutions will be under the spotlight as well?
No, we wish to admit this merger was very unsuccessful. In fact, aspects of it have cost us dearly. As government, we are admitting to that. For example, we no longer have veterinary sciences at this university. Now, that's serious, because the only university now with veterinary sciences is the University of Pretoria. And we need more, especially for agricultural purposes, you know, breeding livestock, you know, and so on. Because also largely it was unrealistic. You can't have a university with a campus that's more than 200 kilometers away. That was one of the factors that made this not to work. So it was for that reason then that a decision was taken, initially by the ANC and then adopted by government, you know, to say that we must actually de-link. But it's more than just de-linking. We've created a new university, a new institution, a new type of an institution than what Medunsa was. This is going to be much larger and much broader and actually be training in a whole variety of disciplines.
Just lastly, Minister, you are unveiling another statue this morning.
Yes.
Just given the debate that is currently ongoing in the country, are there any security concerns? Because we've seen that some of the protests are going beyond what it started off being, against colonialization, against colonial statues. And it seems that like a lot of other statues are now being vandalized and targeted as well. Are you at all concerned?
We agree with the removal of offensive statues. You know, maybe as a country we've reached a stage really where we've got to look at our history and heritage and symbols, but we do not agree with the destruction of any statue, whether it's Verwoerd's statue or Cecil Rhodes. We do not agree with that because statues tell our history. As the president was saying the other day on Friday, you know, we must tell our history, and our history has got nicer sides to it and also has got painful sides to it.
But
so
do you have concerns about this particular statue?
I hope that this statue will actually be protected. I do not have concerns, you know. I think that the statue of Sefako Makgatho will be protected by the students and the entire community here.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. That was Higher Education Minister Bladen Nzimande sharing his views on the launch day of the Sefako Makgatho Health Sciences University.
Thanks, Faith Daniels, talking to the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bladen Nzimande. Now, today's picture of the day comes from Madube on xenophobic attacks with the caption, "Are hashtag xenophobic attacks motivated by poverty or criminality?" Okay, let's take a look at what's happening on your Newsroom Facebook page today. The South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, SATAWU, says it suspects that the killing of its Gauteng Provincial Secretary, Chris Nkosi, was a hit. Nkosi was shot dead in Germiston on Gauteng's East Rand last night. Then suspended COSATU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi says it is time to go back to the drawing board and tell the workers to soldier on and not to be moved by the recent developments in the Federation. And Nigeria's President-elect Muhammadu Buhari has vowed to make every effort to free more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram militants a year ago, but admitted it was not clear whether they would ever find them. You can find all of these stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page or visit our SABC website at www.sabc.co.za. The biggest fear that everyone or anyone has is having their nude pictures on social media. This is what happened to Polani Lenkwe, whose nude pictures were splashed all over social media. With the online regulation policy, anyone who shared and posted Polani's nudes could face criminal charges. This is according to the Film and Publication Board. The policy aimed is to protect children from exposure to disturbing and harmful material and from premature exposure to adult material. To talk to us from the Film and Publication Board, we are joined by Sipho Risiba, who is the Chief Operations Officer. Sipho, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Shed more light for us on this policy.
There's 4 things that this policy seeks to achieve. Firstly is classification of digital content and standardization of content across all media platforms. Secondly, it seeks to create a co-regulatory regime where we'll work together with industry, stakeholders, and online distributors to ensure classification of content and also compliance monitoring. Thirdly, our focus will be on user-generated content. You made reference to posts that are posted on social networking sites. We will be looking at that to ensure responsible use of these social networking sites and public platforms. And the last one will be public awareness and education. And we believe that it is time that we share the costs with industry and internet service providers insofar as public awareness and education is concerned.
Now, many can argue that the World Wide Web is a desert of opportunities, things that you can expose yourself to. How do we even begin to monitor, police the online environment?
One of the things that we believe we'll be able to achieve in terms of this policy is through public awareness. We believe that the more the public is educated, the more the public is made aware of the dangers that are associated with the use of social networking site and the cyberspace in particular, they will be able to monitor and report these incidences to us so that we're then able to refer to law enforcement where criminal offenses have been committed. But also we have internally online compliance monitors who on a daily basis surf the net to see if there are no illegal activities taking place.
We also know that people create false online identities, yes, that they distribute material that they shouldn't be distributing. How do we make sure that in the last couple of years, we've seen the RICA system with SIM cards. How do we make sure that, for argument's sake, that when Sam creates an online profile, then in actual fact it's Sam?
Yes. The Act places certain obligations on internet service providers and network providers insofar as putting measures in place to ensure that their services are not used for the commission of criminal offenses and for child exploitative purposes. So now we believe as the Film and Publication Board that these entities have the technology and the capacity to come on board and assist in identifying these individuals who abuse this medium. And because what happens most of the time is that people hide behind anonymity. And for the fact that there are still people who are able to create fictitious accounts, it means that the RICA laws are not being adhered to by internet service providers and mobile network operators. So we will be doing audits. Once this policy is adopted, we will be auditing all these entities to ensure that one of the things that they comply with is the RICA, insofar as ensuring that everyone who subscribes to their services is registered and their identities are known.
What are some of the consequences, very quickly, if you're found to be guilty?
If you are found guilty, you can be sentenced up to 10 years. So obviously that will depend on the prerogative of the judge or the magistrate who will be dealing with the matter.
Very quickly, we're seeing the revenge porn law in the UK that has really been gaining some teeth. Is South Africa dealing with other countries when we are talking about making sure that the online environment is safe? Are we talking to countries like the UK, which have now strengthened and toughened their revenge porn law?
We have spoken to a number of countries, including the UK, but the model that we felt that it was more in line with what we're currently trying to achieve, it was the Australian model and also the Brazilian model insofar as broadcast content regulation is concerned.
We're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us. That's Sipho Marisiba, who is from the Film and Publication Board, who's the Chief Operations Officer, talking to us about the new policy. And also maybe at the fourth one in that tier is all about awareness and education. Maybe it's time that we spend time teaching our children and our loved ones about being safe online. Let's have a look at what people are saying on Twitter. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. This is from Anahita. It says, is this for real? And of course, this is a look at the hashtag Shaka Zulu statue. Noko is saying, hashtag Shaka Zulu statue has fallen. What next? The Shaka Airport. And Colin Costa is talking about the Shaka Zulu statue removed by Afrikaner people. This is getting deep now. We also heard the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, talking about the Sefako Makgato statue and hoping that the university and the students will protect that statue that's being erected there today. Of course, that university is being split in that part of the world, in Garamkua. Now, the Nedbank Kiona team search is calling all young footballers who are ready to make their dreams happen. If you are looking for that opportunity to prove you can be extraordinary, look out for a team tryout in your province. I'm too old. But of course, it's not all about football, as the Cup's football fan fashion campaign is also allowing superfans and 16 of South Africa's top designers to collaborate with 16 student designers this week. To tell us more, we are joined in studio by Nedbank Group sponsorship portfolio manager Toby Badenhorst and designer Paledi Sakhapo. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's talk about, there's just so many elements and it keeps on growing, Toby. It keeps on adding new legs, this new fashion element. Talk to me about why it needs to grow.
Well, if you look at the sponsorship of the Nedbank Cup, this year is our 8th year of the sponsorship of the Nedbank Cup. And we've recognized it's important to keep on leveraging our sponsorship in new and innovative ways. And hence, we've launched the Nedbank Cup Football Fan Fashion in 2013 with great success. And we're continuing on this journey, like you've correctly mentioned now, with 16 of the top fashion designers in South Africa. We've paired them with the 16 PSL teams in the country. And we've also visited various universities around the country with their fashion and design departments to conjure up, unique outfits, that the fans can wear to the matches. And the winner, there's a competition linked to it, and the winner will be announced the Friday before the Nedbank Cup final on the 15th of May.
Now, anybody who switched on their radio has seen the ads, have seen the successes with previous campaigns around the Kiona Cup. Just some of the other success stories. I remember that one of the players actually ended up in Free State Stars, but there's a lot more success stories, isn't it?
Absolutely, so you're referring to Sydney Masana,
yeah.
Which is the AV that they're showing on TV at the moment. It's a great success story. He was the captain of the Nedbank Kiona team last year. Literally, he was picked off of the dusty streets of Nyanga in Cape Town. He was given an opportunity by the coaches, Shakes Mashaba and Owen Dagama, who forms part of our selection panel of the Nedbank Kiona team search. And he's now applying his trade with Free State Stars. Equally, there are various other players, Moposo Modiba playing for SA Under-20s last year, Moenyo Chibwe playing for Platinum Stars, on loan to United FC. We can go on, and we'd like to create more of those stories.
And those are great stories. But let me bring you into this conversation, because I know fashion and horses, that I know, and I'm used to that diet. Fashion and football? How do you as a designer wrap your mind around that? Surely you don't want to put a soccer ball on a model.
No, absolutely. But you know what? Truth of the matter is, if we didn't love fashion, don't you think we'd all be naked? Soccer stars need to be clad in fashionable clothes. So do the soccer players themselves. When they chase that ball, they need to be in adorable, amazing soccer gear. So that's what makes fashion and football to be rather more exciting, so to speak.
So you've got fashion, football, you've got students. How do you as a designer wrap your mind around that and come up with something that's interesting, that's wearable, and that also speaks to the trends and the colors and what's in season?
Well, this event itself, the Nedbank Cup, it's not necessarily about fashion or about us, but it's about giving back to not only the community, but particularly to the fans. Because if you really think of it, the fans are the one that makes or break a game. And as a result, those are kind of like the unsung heroes, if you really think of it. So with us now, what we're doing, we're saying to the fans, all right, in collaboration with Nedbank, what difference is it that we can make, or what contribution can we make in your lives? And that's precisely what it is. And in so doing, the three of us, the fan, the student that has been chosen from UJ that we've been paired with, including my brand, we have to come up with this amazing avant-garde regalia. And as a result, the fan is going to be obviously super proud to be clad in that regalia. That's not only going to make them feel proudly, being a fan of that club, but also being associated with Nedbank.
Toby, last word to you, 15 seconds, dates, timeouts. People want to find out more. Where can they go?
Okay, well, the Nedbank Cup semi-final draw was held on Sunday, so it will be Mamelodi Sundowns up against Vasco da Gama and Ajax Cape Town up against SuperSport United. The matches will take place on the weekend of 25th and 26th of April. PSL will confirm dates, kickoffs, and the venues in the next day or two.
Okay, we leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. From Nedbank, Group Sponsorship Portfolio Manager Toby Badenhorst and designer Paledi Sakapo. I'm sure you've seen his fashion all over the place. And they are talking to us about the Nedbank Kiona team search. And that's calling on all youngsters. All you've got to do is Google it and find out more. That's it from Newsroom. We broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park in Johannesburg every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the show available on demand on your YouTube channel. We love to interact and enjoy your contributions and opinions. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. Ciao.